Hello everybody, welcome to Hoyt Archery. My name's Anthony, and in this video I'm going to be checking out the limb tension system on the new Hoyt Formula Xi and Formula Xi. This one is just focusing on the Formula Xi. I'll have a later video in the future on the Formula Xi, but we'll be looking at the 3 settings that come with this bow, because by moving the little blocks in here, you can change how the bow performs, or at least how the feeling of the bow performs, and you can kind of tune that to how you like to shoot. So we have a performance setting, a hybrid setting, and a smooth setting. We're going to be looking at things such as, well, just my experience shooting both, how it felt to me. I will also be checking out the speed of each setting to see if there's a big speed difference between each one. I'll be looking at the sound of each setting too to see if there's a major sound difference between each setting. And we'll also be charting out the entire smoothness of this limb based on each setting, and seeing if we can compare all 3 of them together to see if there is, a difference, a noticeable difference between each that relates to the difference in feel when you're actually drawing back the bow. So stay tuned. There's a lot to go on and explain and just find out in this video. So hope you have fun watching it. So I figured we would move from the performance to the hybrid to the smooth setting, get my feel for that. We're also going to capture the sound of the bow and see if you can not only see but hear a sound difference in the shot as we change these settings. I'm going to be using the same arrows every time, so we're nice and consistent with that. And just hopefully this gives everybody, and myself, a really good idea on how this whole thing works, and if there is an actual performance, or at least a feel change in the bow itself, because a feel change can be really beneficial to your performance if it's a feel change that benefits how you shoot, how you like to shoot. Alright, so for me, from what I'm experiencing shooting with the performance setting, the bow feels quick. It feels responsive, little snappier. Now, some of that may be attributed to the bamboo limbs and things like that, but we're gonna see as we move down into the hybrid setting and the smooth setting, and see how that actually changes. Now, in terms of the shot, of drawing the shot back, drawing this bow back, it feels pretty smooth. You can definitely feel a little pull, by the limbs, wanting to flex back into position real quick, and that probably has to do with, this having the maximum amount of tension on the string, since we're in the performance setting of this set of limbs. So that'll also be interesting to see if the limbs get kind of, I guess you would call, softer as we lower our settings. Alright, so we got it now in hybrid mode, which is the middle setting on the string tension adjustment, and we're gonna be trying this out, seeing how it feels, see how the bow sounds, and let's go. Interesting. it actually feels like there's more weight in a way drawing this back. Feels a little like squishier, a little springier. I feel like there's definitely some more movement maybe in my limbs. It'll be interesting to see how the two sounds match up. I don't know if there's really going to be that much of a sound difference or not. Of course, we're going to see that after the fact when I actually check this out on the computer. Again, through drawing back, it has less of a go, of a snappy, like I want to snap forward feel, and it just kind of feels a little bit heavier, but it is smoother in the sense that you don't get this feeling that the limbs really want to just spring forward on you. So definitely a change. It'll be interesting to see if there's a speed difference or anything like that associated with this as well. So far, I would say the performance one is currently my favorite, but we'll see. Okay, so now we have this riser in the smooth mode, or the bottom setting of the limb tension, the string tension adjustment. So we're going to see how smooth it is. I have been told by people that this is, I guess, the closest you can get to a ILF feel on a Formula riser without getting an ILF riser. So just a little food for thought there. I don't know if that's officially from Hoyt, but that's what I've heard. So take that with how with a grain of salt, I guess. But we're gonna find out. It's really soft. let's It's also very smooth, by the way. It is smooth. Let's go at this again. It's definitely smooth. It's very smooth. But it's also very soft, and it feels very like spongy on the after you release. Not the rest of it feels nice and solid, but very smooth. But once you release, the limbs act very spongy. That's interesting. So for some people, this is probably amazing. For me, it's too mellow. It's too soft and smooth for me. I like a little bit of sharpness to it. I really am preferring, for me personally, the performance setting. Again, though, you can really like hang back in this shot. It's going to be really interesting to test this on the Exceed, since it's an ILF riser. Yeah, all the way through here, this is all nice. It's really smooth. Even through even up to the clicking of the clicker, just very smooth. You really don't get like any kind of like stacking feel, or it doesn't feel heavy. It's all three of these settings are distinctively different from each other, which is really interesting because I don't know. I personally wouldn't think if you move a little, two little metal, blocks. I don't know what, a 1/4 inch, I wouldn't think that would make a difference, honestly. But it definitely makes a feel difference in this bow, and it gives you a lot of different options. Okay, so now for the sound test. The first one is going to be at normal speed, so it's going to be fast. Alright, so right there, you heard that. Yes, it was quick. Freezing this though, you can see that the performance, the sound is spread out more, and the highs aren't as high, and they aren't as dark as the hybrid and the smooth. The smooth looks like the sound is a little bit shorter. It's not so much stretched out, even though it seems to flop more. The hybrid seems kind of like a mix of both. It's stretched out more, but it's also got some very dark areas where there's a lot of noise and vibration all put together. So each one is a little bit, distinct from the other. Let's watch them now without any sound, all running together. So without the sound, it's pretty interesting because you can see how everything just kind of flows. They're all lined up, as close as I can get them at least. And you can see the difference between that performance hybrid and smooth. Now for 75% slower with the sound on. Alright, and that was both 75% slower, one at a time, and all together with all their sounds put together. Very interesting. It was really interesting to see how much more there was a little more floppiness, sound floppiness, I guess, in a way, in the hybrid. I thought the floppiest one setting was the smooth. But noise-wise, I would say maybe the hybrid was actually the noisiest. I think personally the performance was the quietest, even though in the back half of it, it does look like it's a little bit noisier than the smooth and the hybrid. But in the beginning, the initial shooting of the bow, it looks like it's actually quieter than both the smooth and the hybrid. Very interesting. So there is a difference in there, and we'll see if that gets highlighted more as we move into the next test, which is going to be running these through the chronograph with the same arrow. So we're going to use one arrow, and we're going to get an average of 5 shots per setting, take that average, and see what that number is, and then see how they compare. See if one of these settings is faster than the others, or if, maybe their speed isn't really significant. We'll find out. Alright, now for the chronograph test, the test that everybody's waiting for. Is there actually a speed difference between any of these settings? Well, we will answer that here and now, and the answer is yes, there is a difference. But does it matter? That's another answer in itself. So first off, with the performance, after 5 shots recorded with the same arrow, the total came to an average of 96.6 feet per second. After switching to the hybrid setting, 5 shots with that same arrow we used on the performance, we got a total and an average of 196.4. So hybrid, 0.2 feet per second slower than the performance. Interesting. Now let's continue on to the smooth though, because I don't know, it's smooth. So should that be even slower, or how is it feeling smooth? After 5 shots again with that same arrow we used for the performance in the hybrid, we got 195.6 feet per second after taking the average of 5 shots, which is 1 foot per second slower than performance. So with this, we did determine that there is a difference, especially between performance and smooth, but the real question is it clinically relevant? Is it really relevant to this test? And in my experience with this, no, it is not. The speed of these arrows of this arrow in all of these tests for all three settings being a foot per second difference between the three, I don't think this is relevant to the actual performance, of these three different settings, because when you look down range, and I shot a lot of ends with each setting that you don't see in this video, because why are you going to watch me just shoot arrows? There really is not a sight setting change. Maybe a clicker here, but that could be me. And I'm shooting pretty well doing all these tests. I'm averaging in the 640s, so it's not like I'm shooting a lot of really poor shots. Most of my shots are well in the 9s and 10s, with the occasional 7s and 8s when I do interesting and questionable things. But with that, I actually want to say the speed test, checking the speed on the chronograph is not very relevant in determining, the performance of the performance, hybrid, and smooth settings, because it doesn't seem to matter when you apply this to the real world and actually shoot the bow. Of course, yes, the chronograph says otherwise. There is a little bit difference, but it doesn't seem to have an effect on the real world application and use of these settings. Now with that, I want to get into our next test, and that is going to be the smoothness chart. And oh boy, was this a whole lot of fun to do. It took an incredibly long amount of time, especially since I was calculating this at a 1/4 inch at a time, trying to get this chart as smooth and accurate as possible so you guys can see it in all its glory, because, well, together we're going to find out if this is, if there's actually a smoothness difference in each of these three settings. And I would think there is, because on the feel when I'm shooting this bow, I feel a smoothness difference, and I think this test is going to be a lot more relevant than the chronograph test, but we'll find out. Okay, so like I just said, the chart is done. This is actually several hours later, and here we go. So we have the Hoyt Formula Xi performance setting, hybrid setting, and smooth setting. Each one has its own category. We went from a 20-inch draw length all the way to a 31-inch draw length. The colors you see are to kind of help separate out the changes in the distance in weight as you draw back the limbs. So it's interesting to see that the performance setting doesn't stay long between that low 0.7 number and hitting 0.699, because it's 0.699. I have the colors changing to red. As you can see, as you move that tension block closer into the bow, making the tension on the string not as tight. So you move from the tightest string tension at performance all the way to the smoothest string tension, or lightest string tension at smooth. You can see that the limbs stay within a closer range per inch as you draw back. The further you go, the less tension there is on the string. Hopefully I'm making sense with that. But hopefully you can also see it in the colors here, because we only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 6 in the gold for the performance, and we have easily double that for the smooth. Moving on to the red section, actually surprisingly even for the most part, which is interesting. And then for the blue, it's actually the opposite, where the smooth has the least difference and the performance has the most. Now, the colors are just arbitrary. They're not important. They're just to show you the difference. And as you can see, the limbs definitely get smoother. They get more consistent when you're in the smooth setting, because you can see how all three are fairly even height. Yes, they're definitely not exact, but compared to their performance, where in the beginning it's very small, and then there's a lot of red, and then there's a fair amount of blue. It's more evenly distributed in the smooth, and the hybrid is definitely a mix in between that. Now we're going to scroll down here, and we're going to look at the draw weight and draw length for each one. Now just eyeballing these, honestly, you can't really tell if there's a difference. So I went ahead and went a step further on this to try to give you guys a better idea. And I'm going to scroll back up, and we're going to move over. And in this section, we have draw length, draw weight of pro or performance, draw weight of hybrid, draw weight of smo or smooth. And I have all these over here again, and they are broken down into a larger chart, a nice large chart. And I will enlarge this chart so we can see them even easier. So draw length on the bottom of the chart, and each one has its own color. So the performance is blue, and you can see that it's riding a little bit higher than the rest of them. It also has a few bumps in it, and I double checked my numbers. These numbers are correct. I made sure that I copied everything correctly into this program. So for my testing, there was actually 2 sections in drawing back the limbs under the performance setting that they actually had a little bump up in the weight as you drew back. Comparing that to the smooth and the hybrid, both of them look much more consistent. And the smooth, since it's at the bottom of the 3, the curve is more gradual as it's going up. Yes, it's very minute, the difference. The difference is very small between the 3, but there is a difference, and you can see the hybrid riding right in the middle. The hybrid's that red line, and it's riding right in the middle of the blue pro and the gold smooth or yellow smooth. So this is pretty cool, and I'm really impressed on how this information really kind of validates the feel difference in the shot for me, because maybe I felt something and then the numbers say it's not there. Maybe it's just a personal perception thing on my part. So it's interesting to see that the numbers actually do show a difference. The limb is performing different based on if it's in performance, hybrid, or smooth settings, and that's pretty awesome. So I would say the big takeaway from this chart and the other ones I just showed you is you're definitely getting a more smooth draw all the way through your shot with the smooth. Hybrid is definitely in between, and performance is definitely a more drastic increase in the weight. Even though for me, it didn't feel that bad. I felt the hybrid setting was actually, kind of like stiffer, kind of a little stackier, I guess, in a way you could call it. But overall, this is pretty awesome, and I hope you enjoyed all the effort I put into making this actually work. Alright, that was quite a video. I hope you enjoyed watching. I hope you found it informative and interesting as I went through all 3 of these settings. I think the big takeaway from this is for the most part, each one is distinct and its own thing. You are actually getting kind of 3 different feels to one bow, in one bow, which is something new. Yes, you could do it with other bows in the past, but it usually had to go with the accessories that you used, maybe a brace height and types of strings and different limbs and things like that. So it's very interesting that you have your your complete bow, and you can actually adjust the bow itself to a particular feel you like in your draw, and then a reaction, like how you like your bow to react to. Do you want a more smooth draw and smooth reaction? Do you want something that's sharper, more performance feeling, or do you want something right in between? It's interesting that this offers that, and it definitely makes, after doing these tests, it makes it seem like this is actually more of a added accessory and option to improve this bow than it is something to just be kind of gimmicky. It doesn't seem to be that, because I personally can actually feel and see differences in my shot and how I experience shooting this bow, and I think that's pretty cool. For more information, there'll be links to Hoyt's site. Check out what they have to say about this setup and about their string tension system. And other than that, thank you so much for watching. Please give this video a like and share it. I spent an entire week putting this together. It was a lot of time dedicated to trying to gather all this information as accurately, as consistently as possible. So with that, thank you again. I appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you to my Patreons, and as always, happy shooting.